Hello everyone, this is Raven's Map. Welcome for the summary for the day of 18 May, and I will be focusing on what happened in Bakhmut these last days. So first of all, I'm going to start showing you the maps I've done since last video, last update, which was the 12th of May, I think. Yes. So in the 12th of May, the mapping was like this, if you remember. So let me show you. Yeah, it was like this. So previously we had the confirmation of the uh, first few success of Wagner forces who managed to enter the citadel. So this part, the high-rise building. Sorry, and since that moment, yeah, it all went very fast. As I told you in a previous video, I don't know which one it was, but perhaps someone remembers. I've told you that anyway, even if there was two possibilities, either the Ukrainians would give up very quickly, and so the Wagner troops wouldn't even have any problems entering these buildings because, of course, the theory, the hypothesis was like that the Ukrainians will tell themselves that there is no point in fighting here. And the other one I've told you is that there is two possibilities. The other one was that even if there is just these parts, these housing blocks, the Ukrainians would still find the energy to fight here and fight until the last. And so what happened is that it was the second uh, hypothesis, the second theory, and I told you in this theory that even if anyway the Ukrainians really are fighting and want to keep fighting and don't want to give up and just leave Bakhmut, the issue will be that the moment the Wagner forces will enter any of these buildings, then the whole defenses of the Ukrainians will crumble very very quickly, because it's like if you had a castle, any castle or any fortification, or I don't know, well, anything you want, a trench or anything like this. It works as long as the enemy is outside of it. But the moment that the enemy is inside, then the trench becomes a defense for himself too. So if you have a city with castles protecting with walls and things like this inside to protect the city, it works for you, but as long as the enemy is outside. When the enemy is inside, then your defenses don't work anymore, because like they still work for what you have, but you have to take in account that the enemy also has these benefits, the advantage of having these defenses, these fortifications. And surely this is what happened, because as you can see, when we go for the 13th May, it was very quick. Look at this. For the just one day later, you had this. And now with the 15th May, this happened. And now when we go to 16th May in the morning, oh sorry, no, I was already, this is the 16th May in the morning, but 16th May during the day, you had all of this that fell to the Russians and these parts. And yesterday, yesterday the 17th of May, confirmation that the entire place was taken, and the few houses here too. And today apparently, so the 18th May, I did not update yet my map, but apparently, you know what, I'm going to do it right now. So for today, the 18th of May, you have this. The Russians managed to capture these few houses that are left here. So yeah, they advanced here apparently. And basically, as you can see, the entire defenses just crumbled in honestly, in 3 days, just 3 or 4 days of fighting, and the moment that the Wagner entered, it was over for the Ukrainian forces. I told you that the moment they would enter the place, then the the entire fortifications, like the point of fighting and defending, keeping this place, the high-rise buildings, it wouldn't have any effect anymore at the moment when the Russians would enter this area. I don't know for the Bakhmut hospital, so I won't change it. And apparently today they had some people's rumors, or perhaps not rumors, but I did not check yet, that the Russians entered uh, some of these buildings. I don't know which one, so I won't modify it right now. But yeah, beside this, as you can see, the entire place fell very quickly. So yeah, as you heard, now the Ukrainians hold less than 1% of Bakhmut, because if you see, there is just this left, a few houses here and here, but yeah, nothing more. For Khromovo, here, the small village of Khromovo, I don't think the Russians will manage to capture it this quickly, because I think there's a lot of trenches in this area that Ukrainians are holding, and moreover, you have the offensive that Ukraine launched in this area. But yeah, the entire town is taken, and now the risk for the Ukrainians is something few people talk about, but I will explain you. If you see, it will be very dumb. I will explain. I will explain it in a very dumb manner, but trust me, it's something that often people forget about it. But in a city, you have a lot of houses, as you can see. I know this is nothing new, but you have a lot of houses, and when there is a lot of houses, it also means that to defend a city, you need to have a lot of soldiers, which is why the Ukrainians sent the Battle of Bakhmut, which is currently the only battle taking place in a city. Because if you see the entire front line, there is no other battle taking place inside the city. It's always villages or fields. Some people will tell me there is Avdiivka. Avdiivka, it's not inside yet. Avdiivka, the entire city of Avdiivka is still held by the Ukrainians. The Russians are just around Avdiivka. But Bakhmut is the only battle where the fights are taking place in a city, and it's also the front line with the most soldiers, the most troops allocated, the most military personnel. And it's simple because in a city you have a lot of houses, which means you have to send a lot of soldiers to defend each street, each buildings, because it's like a maze. You have in a city, it's a place where you can hide everywhere. You can hide everywhere, which means that to clear the city, when you go or to invade the city, you have to send a lot of soldiers to make sure to clear each houses, each buildings. You understand what I'm trying to say? So the Russians sent a lot of troops, which mostly are Wagner troops, and the bulk, the most of the troops in the Bakhmut front line is just inside of Bakhmut, and even the troops behind that are supplying and things like this, they are supplying just mostly for Bakhmut city itself, and not for the flanks or things like this, because and it's the same for the Ukrainians. For them too, it's the same. Most of the troops they allocated to this front line is just for Bakhmut, because of course, if the Russians send a lot of troops to clear the city, it also means that the Ukrainians have to send a lot of troops to hide in each houses, in each streets, to hold each places. You understand? While if you see, for example, this northern front line, as you can see, it's mostly fields. It's mostly fields, and the only places really where the Russians or the Ukrainians are holding is the three lines. Perhaps I have put an email. Oh, actually, yes. So here you have the 12th of May, you had this picture, this video of Ukrainian tank clearing the trenches held by the Russian here. And in the video, basically, you had like, what, eight Russians in this place? Just 8 Russians. And it was this, it's this place, this tree line, where the Russians were and where the Ukrainian tank was moving. And as you see, for an entire place like this, you have just 8 soldiers. So just compare, I'm going to measure this place. You have 1 kilometer, and for 1 kilometer you had like what? 8 soldiers. Let's say at most there was in total before 20 soldiers. So this tree line defends what? It defends this, but it also attacks all of this territory, because from this tree line the Russians are attacking towards these places. You see, they are defending toward these places. They have an overlook on all of these places, you see. So this, you have here an area of, it says 7, well, you have the number here. It's a lot of square meters, as you can see. I think it means something like, yeah, 700 square kilometers, I think. So you have 700 square kilometers defended, or where there is 20 Russian soldiers. And now let's just see this. How much soldiers you can hide in the same area. So, no, not this, sorry. It was this to measure. So you had something like this, I think. Around, I'm not, it's here, it's 600. Yeah, so here too you have 700 kilometers, square kilometers. And as you can see, the difference between 700 square kilometers in the flanks and 700 square kilometers here is that here you have a shit ton of houses, and as you can imagine, here you have not just 20 soldiers. You have perhaps, I'm not going to drop some numbers like this, but you have more than 100 soldiers just here. You understand what I'm trying to say? And I'm going to the point now, is that you heard that Russians are losing some territories in the flanks. So I'm just going to do a quick recap since last time. Last time we had this. Then it was very quick. So on the May 12th you had this. May 13th you had just this. So all of this was taken. And since May 13th, let me see just yeah. Since May 13th, you had all of this place that was taken by the Ukrainians. And as you can imagine, here there is barely anybody fighting in reality. It's just that these fields, you can't put a lot of soldiers in fields. It's not World War II where you send 100,000 soldiers marching on a field and fighting. No, it's not working like this anymore. And just, you have to understand that the Russians are losing territories because they don't have enough troops to man this place, to protect all of these flanks. And why do Ukrainians now are able to make an offensive? The Ukrainians can go on the offensive here because they can't go on the offensive in Bakhmut. It's just simple. Since the Ukrainians have barely any territories left in Bakhmut, then all the hundreds of soldiers they were sending every day in Bakhmut, well, they don't have to send as much now, because there is barely any places left to just put the soldiers, you understand? So all of these soldiers that would before be sent be sent inside of Bakhmut. They are now ready and available to be sent on the flanks. And if you understand correctly what I'm trying to say now, it also means that when Wagner will finish taking Bakhmut, you will have a lot of soldiers that will be able to just be sent on other places on the front line. It will free a lot of manpower, a lot of soldiers, which is why currently you are seeing the Ukrainians attacking on the flanks, but you are not seeing a lot of reaction. There is not. It seems like Wagner doesn't care. Wagner cares about the flanks. Prigozhin is complaining, but you will tell yourself that they will urgently send like reinforcements. You will tell yourself that they will pause this. They will pause activities in Bakhmut to concentrate on the front lines, on the flanks. But no, Prigozhin has to finish taking all of the rest of Bakhmut, so all the Wagner troops he has can be sent on the flanks to help the Russian soldiers. It's simple, which is why Prigozhin is right now speeding up. He's really doing everything he can to finish taking Bakhmut. So all of the soldiers that are here can be just allocated on the flanks and stabilize the flanks and perhaps even advance. So that's simple. It's something that a lot of people just don't understand, but I mean, it's not their fault. But yeah, if you look at the side that this field is, compare this field, its size, and all of the same size but in the city. In the field, you have no soldiers because here it's flat. You have nobody walking on the field like this, or you would get killed. You understand? But in the city, it's not the same. In a city, you can hide everywhere. And so yeah, you don't have territories. I see a lot of people saying Russia lost this amount of kilometers of territory, or Ukraine lost this amount of kilometers of territory. No, it's not good because a square kilometer of land in a city is not the same as a square kilometer of land of a field. You understand? Because for a square kilometer of land in a village or in any villages or in a field or tree lines and things like this, you have barely any soldiers. You have almost 50 soldiers for a square kilometer of territory. In a city, you can have more than 50 soldiers. You can have a lot more, a lot more. So I have nothing else to say about this. I think you understood where I'm trying to come, and that the next day's risks, yeah, they might be very interesting when the Russians will finish capturing Bakhmut, because it will really make Wagner able to send a lot of troops on the flanks and advance, and perhaps they will even be able to advance and take everything east of the canal, but it will be hard because you have the forests here. Forests is like city. In a forest, you can hide everywhere. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to jump on some conclusions. You also had a map that Prigozhin showed in a video he made a few days ago. I just wanted you to see it. It was yeah, I like this map because my map is pretty much the same. And okay, I don't want to be that guy, but there is a small mistake on Prigozhin's map because this area is Ukrainian and not Russian. I always had it as Ukrainian, and even yesterday, I think. Yeah, yesterday I showed you in the latest map update that there is still Ukrainians in this place. And yeah, it's been a lot of time that this area has a lot of Ukrainians hiding. Not a lot, but they made some trenches, I think, in this area here. So it's not the first time I see Ukrainians being shelled in this place. this area is definitely not Russian. But beside this, his map and my map is pretty much the same. And I really think that the entire Bakhmut thing is soon over, if not in the next few days. So we had the scenario. So this scenario was the scenario where the Ukrainians did not abandon, they did not give up, which is why it took longer. But no, what will come next is what we have to ask ourselves. If you just zoom out here like this and you look at the landscape, at the map, you will clearly see where the fight is going to move now. I've talked about it before, and just here you have, you have the Donetsk chain, or Donetsk, I don't know what the fuck you want to call it, is this city chain. This chain of city here, going from Liman through Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Drushkovka, Konstantinovka, and Toresk. And this city chain is linked with Gorlovka, Yenakiev, and things like this, and it then goes back here toward Donetsk. But as you can see, Bakhmut is here, and Bakhmut is very strategic because from Bakhmut they can now put the artillery, and the artillery now will be able to pretty much cover bigger front line here, more territories. So for the bigger sort, like there is multiple artillery used by Russian army, and some artillery pieces can shell, I think, up until Konstantinovka. So the fight will most likely move on Konstantinovka and Dzerzhinsk, because for these areas you have too much fields to cross, and fields is not a good place to move a lot of troops to invade cities. So my take is that now what we will see is that Wagner and Russian army will focus again to take all of this area, and especially Pretechne and Stupochki in these areas. And from there they will have a connection toward Konstantinovka and perhaps move south to Dzerzhinsk, I don't know, or directly toward Konstantinovka, Drushkovka, then move up to Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, and then Liman. But for Liman, honestly, I don't think it will be the same offensive. For Liman, it's a lot closer to just take the forests, and from the forest invade Liman. Because if you remember, the Ukrainians, how did the Ukrainians enter, like make the Russians took back all of these territories? If you remember very well, and it will prove what I'm trying to say, the Russians had something like this. And if you see, there is a lot of forests in these parts everywhere here. And as I told you, forests are like cities. It's places where you can put a lot of soldiers, and it's hard to defend because, well, as you can imagine, forests or cities, the visibility is not that good. It's hard to move, armored vehicles and things like this, and it's sometimes harder to spot the enemy to then use artillery, which is why the Ukrainians managed to penetrate this area, because they just overwhelmed the Russians in this forest, and the Russians could not like kill all the Ukrainian soldiers here, because it's not like if the Ukrainians were attacking on fields or things like that. When it's field or tree lines, things like that, you can spot the enemy. When it's in forest, it's harder, and the Russians could not spot all of the troops in a duration, in enough time. It's they did not have enough time to do this, which is why they got overwhelmed and they had to retreat when the Ukrainians made their offensive on Izium and Liman, which Izium and Liman, as you can see, are directly directly connected to this forest. And it's also why, as you can see, Kremenaya frontline is one of the bloodiest frontline right now, because the Ukrainians are engulfing, like entering the forest. They are hiding in the forests. There is a lot of them hiding in the forests because they know if they want to get to Kremenaya, or get even then to Robizhne and Severodonetsk, going through the fields is dumb. They will die. But when you send thousands of soldiers in a forest, it's easier. And especially that the forest, as you can see, ends directly on the city. So, yeah. And it's also why, as you can see, the Russians have a lot of territories here, because it's just fields. So the Ukrainians are not able to keep the Russians away. But the Ukrainians are able to advance this close in the forest. So, yeah. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say right now. I'm not the best at explaining, I know, but anyway, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to just ask it in the comments, and I hope you enjoy it, and see you for the next video. Bye bye.